Okay, so as fate would have it, I've just seen like 2 or 3 Nicolas Cage movies in relatively short order. I don't know why. I think it just came down that way. But I got a Nicolas Cage movie at Blockbuster. I saw one on cable. I think I saw National Treasure 2 on cable. And I got back from seeing Kick-Ass with my brother, and he hated it. And we like to talk about these movies a lot. And so sometimes, most of the time we actually agree. But sometimes when we disagree, it's really funny because we disagree rarely, but when we do, it's really, really volatile. So we tend to argue a lot. And so he comes out of this movie, he's like, I hated this shit, man. This movie was fucking horrible. And I'm like, really? Explain. Because I wanted to hear this. And I'm sitting there listening, and, sure enough, I couldn't argue with any of his points, really, because he was absolutely right. And yet, I still love this movie. And it's kind of hard to explain why. But I think part of what I have to explain is that I read the comic like a week before I saw this movie, and I hated it. I hated the comic like entirely. And I think a lot of the comic fans hated this movie because it changed so much of the comic for the movie. And trust me, any changes from the comic could only be a good thing. And they changed, thank God they changed, what I found to be the worst part of the comic. And that is with the characters of Big Daddy and Hit Girl, specifically Big Daddy. And so, this is going to be a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the movie. So, just skip. You're going to have to skip ahead for a little while. But basically in the movie, I found the relationship between Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy and Hit Girl to be very, very sweet. And it was kind of strange how sweet and very heartwarming this relationship was, especially since we're dealing with these two remorseless killers, and yet they had a very healthy, like, father-daughter relationship. Like, he's taking her out to shoot, learn how to shoot, take a bullet, and they're going out for coffee, or not ice cream, and they're having hot chocolate with marshmallows. It's very nice. Like, he bought her butterfly knives for her birthday, and isn't that sweet? And basically the motivation behind this story is that Big Daddy was a former cop who refused to go dirty and take bribes from the mob boss D'Amico. So D'Amico sets him up on a drug charge, sends him to jail. His wife is inconsolable with grief, overdoses on drugs or something like that, and she dies, leaving the daughter alone with the father who's just come out of jail. So he raises her to be this vigilante, like basically a ninja, and they're together like that. And so you're like, okay, that's pretty good for the movie. But in the comic, it turns out that in the comic, Big Daddy made it all up. He completely faked it. He says, like, I made up the whole story about D'Amico and the mob boss. I'm just an accountant who got bored. I left my wife, I took my daughter, and I raised her to be this ninja. I was like, that is completely monstrous. That is like, it's unconscionable what this guy did to his daughter. And all of a sudden, like that, I just hated this comic completely. The good guys in this movie were worse than the worst bad guys I could ever imagine doing this to a little girl, like, because you were bored? So, like that, I was like, no guy would ever do this. Like, no guy wants to be a superhero that badly. He would ruin his daughter's life to become a fucking ninja. And if there was anyone in the world who would want to do this, you would, like, this guy is despicable. So, the fact that they changed that relationship completely and made that relationship a very heartwarming one was light years an improvement over the comic. And, tell you the truth, I dug it. I like the music. I probably would have chosen some different Ennio Morricone music, but I thought the music worked well. Great soundtrack. The action was very well done, very well choreographed. Now, as for the complaints that my brother had, he said that Kick-Ass essentially becomes a spectator in his own movie. And he's right. He does. It starts off really cool where you got this normal kid wants to be a superhero, so he goes out, fights crime, fails miserably, and yet he gets popular because he's got heart. Like he goes out there and he throws himself into it. He gets his butt kicked, but he's got spirit and he wants to help people. And so there's no task too small for this guy. He's going out, he's saving cats and doing this kind of thing. He's being heroic in his own way. And then it reaches this point where Big Daddy and Hit Girl come in, and basically Hit Girl, in a figurative screenwriting sense, bitch slaps Kick-Ass right across the room, steals his fucking lunch money, and runs away with this movie and never looks back. Hit Girl steals this movie completely and just runs. And basically, Kick-Ass spends the entirety of the rest of the movie just like pinned against a wall doing this. You know, just looking at all this cool stuff going down, wishing he could do this stuff. So he becomes a spectator. He gets just so bitch made in this movie. You know, he would fade into the background and become part of the wallpaper if he could, but he's wearing a big green fucking suit, so you'll see him no matter what. Like, if he was wearing something a little more bland, he would just vanish completely. And so, I'm not sure that's the best way to carry your movie, is to relegate your main hero to becoming just this guy who watches the real people do all the work. And, you know, he does get his hero moment at the end. He does step up to after a fashion, but it's such this it's a geeky white boy fight at the end, and it just doesn't seem all that heroic. It doesn't really seem earned. It doesn't seem like he's become this hero, and I'm not sure that's the point that this movie was trying to make. Like, some people just aren't cut out for it, but you know, it's the intention that matters, or you really need to be logical about this kind of thing. I don't know. It really does seem like it's at like the halfway point. This movie is like, you know what? Fuck this guy. Hit Girl's where it's at, and we just follow Hit Girl because, man, she's awesome. And I think I would have liked to have seen some more instances of just Kick-Ass stepping up and, you know, not being this utter failure all of the time. There were instances where he was actually doing some good, saving the cats. You know, pardon me. You know, just helping people. Like, I kind of would have liked to have seen a scene where he helps an old lady across the street or something. You know, proving that, you know, heroism, superheroism doesn't necessarily need to be like fighting the mob or you know, fighting gang members or something like that. It's about getting out there and making a difference. And that's all he wants to do, is he get out there and make a difference. I mean, fighting crooks might be part of it, and actually I think the comic does a little bit more of that. Like, he's content in the comic to kind of be small time, you know, just to help people however he can, finding dogs, that kind of thing. And in the movie, he just goes right into fighting criminals, getting his ass kicked, and then realizing this sucks. And really, he, like, there was some of those moments I said that she really should be disturbing, but aren't. Like, the girl he once thinks he's gay, so he just rolls with it. And there reaches a point in this relationship where he probably should have come clean on this one, where it becomes sexual assault, you know? So a lot of movies try to walk that line and don't always succeed. And so when you look at these situations one way, and in fact, probably the most logical way, you're getting creepy and probably illegal, kind of like Observe and Report does. I think this movie does it better than most, and actually I thought it was still kind of sweet. And oh, that was another big change about how whether or not the hero gets the girl. And I actually thought it works better in the movie this way. I thought the way it was in the comic is really, really cynical. And although she probably does react a little more sensibly than I think most real women would, I think at some point you gotta throw this guy a bone and you know, let this movie embrace his earnestness to do right. You know, and that's what I'm saying. So. But yeah, I think whether you love it or hate it, or whether you think you're gonna like it or not, it actually is pretty much a really good movie-going experience, just to see whether or not you like it. Because if you if you want me to tell you whether I liked it, yes, I did. And would I tell Miles that he's wrong for not liking it? No, I can't, because his complaints are exactly right. But I still thought it was a really good movie-going experience. It's worth seeing. I mean, just to figure out whether or not you liked it. And I thought Nicolas Cage was really good at it. He's really channeling this Adam West Batman style persona for Big Daddy. It's a very Shatnerian performance, and I liked it. And I thought he is actually a good enough actor that he managed to save quite a few scenes that would have really turned out to be comical when they weren't supposed to be funny. There's a scene where somebody gets burned very badly, which I thought a lesser actor would have made that come off as being really silly. And I thought he actually added a lot of weight to that, where even the direction probably wasn't strong enough to make that scene seem impactful enough. But he was good. Which leads me to the movie I rented at Blockbuster called Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, which, from what I understand, has very little to do with the original Bad Lieutenant, which I've also seen, except it kind of shares the same name. Although, I remember the director of the original Bad Lieutenant has gone on record saying that he hates this movie, and he hopes everyone involved is in the same car and dies in a firebombing or something like that. Like, look it up. I saw it on Wikipedia. He's like, I want these people to burn alive and die. And, like, Werner Herzog, who made the new Bad Lieutenant, is like, dude, like, I have never even seen any of your movies. I've never seen the original Bad Lieutenant. And I was like, I would love to hammer this out with you over a bottle of whiskey, because, like, I wasn't trying to shit on your parade, man. I really wasn't. So, but yeah, this movie. How to describe this movie? If you're a Nicolas Cage fan, get this movie. And that is not an easy camp to be in, being a Nicolas Cage fan. Okay. He's kind of become a running joke, wrongly so, by the way. You know, like, if you see this movie and you're like, oh, great, Nicolas Cage is in it. He's a really good actor, and I'm not denying that, you know, he's been in a lot of shitstorm movies, and I have to question sometimes his either his agent or his decision-making skills in choosing to appear in such movies as, Knowing, which is, I actually think is a really hilarious performance, but probably the most notorious lately is The Wicker Man. There's actually been a bunch of Nicolas Cage movies that I haven't even seen, probably more recent than those. But yeah, The Wicker Man is kind of prototypical of everything that is goofy about a Nicolas Cage performance when he is really, really hamming it up. And if you haven't seen The Wicker Man, worth seeing, because all I have to say to you is that there are no less than 3 scenes of Nicolas Cage outright brutalizing women, because that's really funny. But he basically pump kicks Lily Sobieski across a room, and he dresses up in a bear suit and uppercuts a woman in the forest. And so if you're not sold already, this movie is not for you. But how to describe this flick? Bad Lieutenant. Yeah, if you're a Nicolas Cage fan, you've picked this one up already, and you've seen it, and you've loved it. This is basically Nicolas Cage intentionally making a shitty Nicolas Cage movie, and it's awesome. I love this movie. So, it basically follows the same premise as the original Bad Lieutenant. In fact, I kind of find it hard to believe that Werner Herzog has not seen the original, because it actually hits a lot of the same beats. It's nowhere near as... the original is actually a really good film that I never want to see again, because it actually is so heavy and impactful and oppressive is the word. And this movie is actually... I actually tried to think of a way to describe this flick in kind of one sentence. And I think this Bad Lieutenant is to a cop movie as much as it is like what Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is to a cop movie. You know, if that's a bad analogy, but it's probably closer than you think. Basically, Cage is playing this drug-addled, completely burned out cop, this homicide detective, and he gets confronted with this case of I think it's 5 or 6 people get killed in post-Katrina New Orleans. He's trying to find the killer. He's running up into all sorts of problems. Like, nobody respects him. He's got this mad crack habit. His supply gets cut off when his source inside the police supply room gets froggy on him and refuses to give him any more drugs. He's got this crack addicted hooker he's also trying to hook up with drugs. He's got a gambling problem. He always sucks at, he's betting on football games, and he blows at it. Brad Dourif's in this movie as well. So is Val Kilmer, and who aren't even billed in this film. Like, it's like Nicolas Cage, Eva Mendes, and I was like, you don't mention Val Kilmer? You don't fucking mention Brad Dourif? I don't know. It's got Exhibit in it too. I probably wouldn't have billed him, but he's still really good in it. Jaws clicking. So it's kind of, you're kind of expecting to see this standard police procedural, but then it gets weird because the entire time he's taking hits off his hand and hits of cocaine. He accidentally snorts heroin, and he spends this entire movie like basically stoned off his ass. And really overacting, really hamming it up, menacing pharmacy technicians. Can I get my prescription, please? Like really overtly threatening, like innocent people. Like he actually he holds a gun to like this nurse's head while he cuts off this old lady's oxygen supply, and he's threatening this old lady, trying to get information. He's like, I need to know who killed this guy, and like, where's your son? And he's like hitting rock cocaine while he's interrogating suspects, and he's trying to set this guy up, and he's like, I got my lucky crack pipe. But where it gets funny is you kind of get pulled into his perception of things. And so, they're setting up this surveillance operation against this suspect across the street. And all of a sudden, Nick is like, he takes a key hit before going in this room. So he's stoned, and he's like, what we got? And they're like, oh, we got the surveillance set up. And all of a sudden he's like, the fuck are those iguanas doing there? And you look down, and there's iguanas there. And Val Kilmer's like, what fucking iguanas? He's like, the fucking iguana. Like, he punches an iguana, and he's like, that fucking iguana over there. And he's like, then Val Kilmer's just like, whatever. And so Nick is like, all right, let's just go look. And all of a sudden, like a bullet to the head, we crash zoom into the imaginary iguana's point of view. I've never seen a movie where not only do we switch point of views dramatically for like 2 minutes, it's an imaginary point of view. So like, there's this fake iguana sitting there with another fake iguana, and all of a sudden we just like go into this iguana's head, and these iguanas are just looking at each other like, I don't know. And there's this scene where like they're having this conversation, and like really heavy conversation, and he's doing cocaine, and all of a sudden he just looks up and he goes, hey man, do you think fish have dreams? And then they just go to an aquarium and they just look at fish, and you're just kind of staring at them for like 45 to a minute, and they're just like, I don't know. It's kind of awesome. And if you weren't that kind of guy who could sit through Wicker Man or sit through Knowing, and like if that doesn't sound appealing to you at all, like if you don't want to see Nicolas Cage like make an ass out of himself, probably not your deal. But actually, I was kind of impressed that you could have easily chalked this. Like I said it was Nicolas Cage making a shitty Cage movie, but at the same time, I actually thought at some point it kind of transcended that, and you kind of grew to like this guy. Like Nicolas Cage does not look like the kind of guy who is this drug addicted cop who would be acting this way. And so at first you're kind of like, you're taken aback by almost how silly this guy is acting, but then then you buy it because he's actually good enough that you kind of believe this, where he's got these mannerisms, he's that strung out, and you can kind of see at some point that you believe it. I actually thought his performance was really good. So it kind of stops being about the murder at some point, because he gets demoted, he gets kicked off the case. Like he's so strung out that he's getting suspected. Like, he can't go doing this stuff and get away with it. He can't go like strangling old ladies and dry clicking a revolver at a nurse and doing rock cocaine in front of suspects while he's talking to them. Like, you just can't get away with that shit. So he gets kicked off the case, and he's always looking for drugs. He's shaking down people, and so basically, like, the second half of the movie just becomes about him like trying to get over his trying to get out of this financial hole. His girlfriend is pissed off of John, and so he's got like mafia connections and stuff like that. He's trying to get out of that. So it's got really silly, got really iconic moments. I thought like Shoot Him Again, His Soul Still Dancing, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, just you gotta watch this movie. So I actually think, in a way, this could become, or to me, it actually is kind of an iconic. It's like probably one of the top 3 Nick Cage movies. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I don't know what to tell you. This is another one of those movies where if you went up to me and said, this movie sucked, like, what the fuck is Nicolas Cage doing? What the fuck is with the iguana, like, just sitting around in some scenes? What the fuck is with, like, Nicolas Cage shooting this dude, and, like, all of a sudden you see his soul breakdancing over him, and he's like, you gotta shoot that guy again. Like, you could tell that all to me and be like, I know. what did you expect? This is Nicolas Cage kind of like lampshading himself, and in a way, it's kind of a comedy in that way. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe I'm not getting enough sleep, and my jaw is clicking. I've been playing a lot of games. I've been playing Splinter Cell Conviction, although I haven't gotten far enough in that one yet to tell you what I think about it. Although I do think it's really funny in Splinter Cell Conviction how basically we've just programmed a key now where you run into the room and Sam Fisher just like automatically takes out 4 dudes at the same time, like Jason Bourne style. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's kind of cool that you're that efficient, but at the same time, it's like, do you need me to play this game? I'm just like killing people, just like bam, 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 bam. I don't know. It seems kind of silly to me. Michael Ironside is always awesome. I think those Splinter Cell games are worth it just to hear him just like growl out all his lines. It's that good. Although I think Sam Fisher as a character is starting to easily become a parody of himself with like the whole action, like the growly action star menacing one-liners and stuff like that. Wrestling. I did watch wrestling. I'm not going to go too much into that because it's really bad. The Raw crew is stuck in Ireland because of the volcano, so basically Raw was SmackDown this week. Douglas Williams was stripped of the X Division title because he was legitimately trapped in Ireland, or in the UK, because of a fucking volcano. They stripped him of the title because, we couldn't just rewrite the show. We had to get that fucking title off Douglas Williams, right? So we just gave it to Cass. We couldn't have just delayed it another week. No. We had to have a match on the pay-per-view. So we had to move heaven and earth, doing a replacement contender match for the vacant title. And the belt, by the way, still in the UK. Still haven't resolved that situation for Monday, by the way. Don't even address it, but yeah. TNA still sucks. And if I may, just one more thing about the whole TNA thing. Are they fucking out of their minds? Really? Like, okay. Kurt Angle has this match with Mr. Anderson, by the way, a match which was probably really good. I didn't see it, but I've seen highlights of it. Like, if I never see Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson wrestle again for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. But apparently it was a really good match. And in this match, Kurt Angle does a fucking moonsault off the top of the cage. I have no idea what the fuck he was thinking. Like, he could have died, like, easily. I can't imagine. At the very least, we're talking grievous injuries. How the hell did they talk him into that? Is Kurt Angle just that fucking crazy? Like, we want you to jump off the top of the cage. And he's like, I can do that. But, like, you can't do that to yourself. Like, you're like 15, 18 feet above the ground. You're jumping and landing on your face. There's no good way to land from that. You're going to get hurt. He did get hurt when he pulled that shit. There was a cage match against Chris Benoit, and he fucking moonsaults off the cage, and I think he broke his knees doing that shit. Like, the fuck are you thinking, man? Don't you have kids? Like, man, you wouldn't pay. Like, I can see some of the younger assholes doing that stuff, but man, Kurt Angle, you gotta, like, at some, like, these wrestlers are crazy. They'll fucking do anything you tell them to, I think. But, you gotta have more respect for your wrestlers than to throw them out there to fucking kill themselves by jumping off the top of a fucking cage. And not only that, we do this thing 3 fucking times during this pay-per-view, Like, it used to be Superfly Jimmy Snuka jumped off the cage 1 fucking time, and it immortalized him. He did this suicidal jump off the fucking cage, and you're like, that's Superfly, man. That was fucking crazy. That was awesome. Now, TNA, we do this 3 times a show. We have Kurt Angle do it. We have AJ Styles do a crossbody off the top. We have fucking Jeff Hardy jump off a ladder on top of the cage, through a table on the cage. We do it 3 times. It's fucking crazy. I don't mind, like I do mind that they made any one of them do this, but to make 3 people do this, you've got this legendary spot. You've got this thing that nobody ever does, and nobody ever successfully pulls off, except the fucking Superfly. Like Kurt Angle that one time. I think he missed that one time. But, you take this extraordinary feat that if you're going to do it, you do it in a spectacular blow-off feud. and you do it in the big pay-per-view, and you do it, you set this thing up. You do it one time. You don't do it 3 times. You take this extraordinary thing, and you cheapen it. They've made this jump off the cage, what should be like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and they've made it cheap. 3 times a show? Like, are they, like, that's all I'm saying, is like, you're killing your wrestlers, you're cheapening one of the most devastating moves in the business, and, you know, what are you getting out of this? Like, you know, the crowd, they've seen it one time. How many times they need to see it? Okay. But yeah, I mean, okay, back on topic. I would check out Kick-Ass. I would check out Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans, but only the second one. Only if you're a Nicolas Cage fan. If you're not, if you're like Nicolas Cage is bullshit. I hated National Treasure. I hated fucking Noah. I hated The Wicker Man. By the way, if like see Wicker Man and then see it with the riff tracks. Okay, you got it. Like, seriously, if you know that you're a fan if you can sit through The Wicker Man and get a chuckle out of that one, because that movie is pretty awesome. Oh man, it's probably the worst movie he's ever done. But yeah, I like Protocol New Orleans. I keep wanting to get back to Persona 4, and I keep getting sidetracked. Damn you guys. So yeah, see Kick-Ass. I'm actually really excited. There's a bunch of new movies coming out. Iron Man 2, definitely. The Expendables. The Losers, which actually I think is going to hurt real bad. I actually read, I think, 2 or 3 of the trades of The Losers, and I don't remember, but it seems like they're really pushing The Losers as this action comedy, which seems wrong to me. I remember The Losers being a much more intense, downbeat, like everybody betrays the losers type mentality, where these guys are on the run. They're like, they can't trust anybody. They've got only themselves to rely on. They've got no friends. And I just remember it seeming really heavy, like people dying all the time in that comic. I don't know. It just kind of seems wrong to me. They're kind of having this thing where they're like, you've got these hot chicks shooting grenade launchers, and everyone's having a good time. And they're, by the way, the Losers, they rip off that bit from Crank at the end where Statham is like pointing his gun at people, and all of a sudden the guy gets shot, and they're like, what the fuck, his finger is magic, and all of a sudden you like look across the street and this guy's got a sniper rifle. They rip that off from Crank. I'm calling bullshit on that one, okay? It was a good time, it was a good spot in Crank, but they're ripping that shit off with the fucking finger. But yeah. Oh, what else? There was MacGruber. Fucking MacGruber. You know, I will admit I got a chuckle out of the whole Upper Decker joke, but wow. You know, MacGruber, that was a joke that was played in the 80s. I barely saw MacGyver. I grew up in the 80s. That's when MacGyver was playing, and I barely saw that. Like, they were doing MacGyver jokes in 1986 on Saturday Night fucking Live. And those jokes were like, you know, after a year, we're like, haha, yeah, that MacGyver is silly. He can certainly make a bomb out of anything, can he? You know, everyone was making jokes like, I need a pack of chewing gum, some wire, a safety razor, and a box of Slim Jims. You know, like people are like, you're making a MacGyver joke, aren't you? Like, I can't believe in 2010, like 25 years after the fact, we are still hung up on the fucking MacGyver jokes. It's almost like it's an older joke almost than like fucking Rickrolling, where it's a joke that was funny in the 80s, died, sat in a grave for 15 years, and then was suddenly resurrected as some kind of like joke zombie that just will not die. And you know, this movie does look better written and better acted than most of the Saturday Night Live fodder that's come out in recent memory, or even distant memory. But man, you know, part of me just can't reconcile this whole thing with like the fucking MacGyver stuff. Like, I am so done with MacGyver at this point. And besides that, the MacGruber stuff, it sucks. I've seen those Saturday Night Live sketches. I've seen that shit they were doing during the Super Bowl. God, not funny. Like, who brought that into a fucking meeting? Like, the guy's like, I know what we could do. We could do a MacGyver parody. Brilliant! 2010. We're still talking about MacGyver. Okay. I've got even more work to do, so I'm going to get to it. Until then, check out Kick-Ass and let me know what you think. That's one of those polarizing movies, as all comic book movies invariably turn out to be. But I had a good time. Until next time, guys, I'll see you. Oh, till the break of dawn! Watch Bad Lieutenant.